In this video, I'm going to walk you through the steps in creating a colored pencil portrait. You're going to want your thumbnail sketches, your reference photo, and your colored pencil mixing grid. To begin, you want to determine what color you need for your base and also a shadow color that will complement your base color. So in my example, I'm using my two base colors and I'm using a cool gray tone for my initial shadows. Before I begin adding color, I want to go ahead and erase all of my dark pencil lines. This will help keep the colored pencil and the graphite from mixing and creating a muddy gray color. For my next step, I want to apply the base color and the shadow color very lightly to just one section. So I'm going to be starting with the forehead and working my way from the top down on this portrait. When you're applying your first layers, you want to use a really light hand. So I'm holding the pencil towards the back and I'm doing really quick and loose, gentle lines. I don't want to have any streaks at this stage, so I'm using really little pressure, but I'm just marking out where I think the shadows should go. And I'm going to slowly build up those values from light to dark. So I notice that there's a shadow under the hairline, and there's also a shadow above the left eye. So once I'm pretty confident with the placement of the shadows, I'm going in with a brown at this point, and I'm just adding a little bit of warmth to some of the shadows under the, or on top of the light shadow color that I initially put down. Because again, we're building up these values really slowly. For the hair, I want to pay attention to the direction that the hairs are going in, but you can think about them as clumps or clusters of hairs instead of as individual strands. For this next stage, I'm adding in some dark values for the eyebrows so that I can judge the skin tone and see if I've made it dark enough, or if I still have more layers to add. So I'm using a warm brown color, and I'm going in and using the same color I used for the eyebrows as the darker areas of the hair, and also in some of the shadow areas. So on this next section of the face on the left, instead of adding the base color first, I decided to mark out where I thought the shadows would go and see if the shape was correct before adding the base color on top of the shadow. It's important when you're working to have your reference photo very close to your drawing so that you can make quick judgments by looking at the reference photo and then again at your drawing paper. In this next step, it's really important that once you have some values laid out, that you walk away and take a break. When you come back after a few minutes, you'll notice when you make comparisons between your reference photo and your drawing that things need adjusting in terms of how dark they should be. Maybe the placement on something needs to change slightly, but just taking that break is really important when you're creating a long, lengthy piece like this. To create a sense that the lips are not lying flat on the face, I'm really paying attention to the highlights and the shadows. So in this next stage, I'm just really building up my shadows, layering over my original base color with some purples and some browns and even some gray. When working on the white of the eyes, it's important to remember that in order for an eye to look like it's wet or has a shine to it, you need to have a little bit of contrast. So the white of the eye isn't going to be pure white. The only pure white that you would see would possibly be any shine marks or reflections in the eye. So just like when I'm starting drawing and I start with the white of the eye instead of the iris, I do the same thing when I'm adding color. When filling in the pupil and the iris of the eye, it's important to have a nice sharp pencil so that you can get some really crisp detail lines. A part of the face that's often overlooked is the area between the nose and the mouth, and also the corners of the mouth. They're really important in getting a likeness. Everyone's mouth corners either turn up or turn down, or maybe they're neutral and they go straight across. But it's important to notice these when you're trying to achieve a likeness from a photograph. When working on the hair, it's important to consider how the hair is growing out of the scalp and the direction that the hair is kind of flowing in. So you might start with a really light base color, but then when you're adding your darker tones to show the shadows in between the clumps of hair, really take the time to notice the direction that those are going in. Our next step is to add even darker values. So where we started with really light tones, now we're going to be adding anywhere that is going to be really dark. In my case, my glasses are the darkest area, as well as the pupil and the part of the hair. So those are the areas I'm going to be using some deep browns and some black. Again, when you're using black, make sure that your pencil is nice and sharp so that you're getting crisp lines. Once I've added in that really dark value for the glasses, I'm noticing that the skin tone is really pale, considering that the glasses, in contrast, make the skin look really lighter than it does in the reference photo. So I'm going to add in the black shirt and then make some more comparisons to the skin tone. So at this stage, all my base colors have been laid out, and I'm ready to apply more layers or use a clear blender pencil and work on some fine details. The fine details are your final stage, and once you've added things like eyelashes or the direction of eyebrow hairs, then your drawing is complete. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.